And the broadcast is live. Phil Tarrant, Tom Panos, Real Estate Exposed. Hope you're well. Thursday afternoon, gearing up, getting ready for the Christmas season. Tom, I've just had to rush back to the office. The Australian Broking Awards are on right at this very second in Sydney. 660 people getting together, celebrating what is great about mortgage brokers. I'll tell you what, mate, I've been this is the 11th year that they've done this particular event. And I've seen some years and brokers are sitting there with their heads bowed and their shoulders slumped. This year, there's a lot of chests pumped out and it looked like there's a fair bit of money in the room, mate. I think it's not a bad time to be a mortgage broker.
Well, Phil, I hope they're not all going to spend. Where's your event?
At the ICC, the International Convention Centre.
Okay. I hope they don't cross down to the casino and spend all the money that they've made. And I hope they haven't been spending all the money that they've made, because I think, like the real estate industry, the mortgage industry has had an incredible run, in the last 12 months. And all I can say to you, Phil, is that you shouldn't factor that money is going to be coming in again. But I've gone to one of those events. They're very stylish events. And I think you would have missed out on the one last year. You wouldn't have run last year.
Yeah, we can do it. You know what? It's the first event for mortgage brokers held in Sydney since the first lockdown, like big event. It's been that long literally between drinks for the mortgage sector. So, mate, it's good to get out. But one of the numbers that was bandied around, NAB is the principal partner of the awards program. Their head of broker operations got up and spoke about the record numbers now of mortgages. And Annie Kane, the editor, put the number somewhere at 67% of all new applications now originated by mortgage brokers, mate. That's massive.
Yeah. Oh, there was one time that it was the minority. Now it's the majority. And now I get surprised when someone said to me yesterday that they'd got a loan, and I said, "Oh, who's your broker?" And he said, "Oh, no, I've gone direct to ANZ." And that's I was surprised, because it's rare that someone actually deals direct with the bank now. This is majority mortgage brokers. Majority of them meet at cafes, restaurants, or they come to your house. You don't line up and sit in the foyer of a bank waiting to see the manager who sits behind a table.
Have you been to a bank branch lately? Geez, they're miserable places.
I haven't been to a bank branch. I haven't been to a bank branch for years, Phil. So and they were they were heading miserable when I last went there. They were heading miserable, so now they are miserable. Doesn't surprise me. I think the people that work in there aren't probably over the moon with the roles that they've got either. And I think the customers that go in there, well, it's not a seamless experience as what it is when you're dealing with a mortgage broker at your place, or when you're doing your own banking using digital products these days. So I'll tell you one thing. There used to be a time, Phil, that the golden property that someone owned was a commercial property with Commonwealth Bank as your tenant. That was the blue chip of blue chip properties. Today, people that are buying a building that's got a bank in there, it is not a plus at all, because people know they're shrinking. There's less banks, and that they're not the ideal tenant, because they won't be there forever. So I'm just so happy, and I'm over the moon to hear that you've got the brokers there. In fact, 3 years ago, I was at an event. I still remember it. I was sitting with my client, Bernard Desmond, and he won. We were chatting while he won the award.
That's
right, I don't know if you remember. He was just shell-shocked, and there was just this pause. And I said, "That's you," because he'd actually won an award about half an hour before that, right?
Yeah, he won the overall broker of the year. I remember I come and sat down with you guys just nearing the end of the event, and we were sort of having a bit of a yarn. And you were like, "That's you, mate. You've just won the big award." It was, I remember it was good. You pulled your phone out and you videoed him and all this sort of stuff. Looks like Tom's dropped out of the feed, so I'm just going to have to probably go by myself on this. Where Tom is, I'm not too sure. He's not here whatsoever, but no doubt he'll dial back in. And it looks like here he is now. I was just filling some airtime there, Tom.
Yeah, look, I don't know what happened there, Phil. I've had it's a tech issue that bumped me off, but remarkably
Mhm.
with StreamYard, I just re-entered the room and it was there. We are having an
Mm.
issue with LinkedIn. It is saying to me here now, so that's okay. I'll get it loaded up. But we are live on Facebook and YouTube, and people are
The
watching
beauty
it
of
right
life.
here. Can
The
you hear
beauty of
me?
being live. But yeah, mate, really, really, really happy to have got that event done. Great energy in the room, great vibe, big tick for me in terms of the value that mortgage brokers are providing. 67%. Maybe I've got that number right or wrong. It's pretty close to that. Gives you some sense of it all, but also towards banking. They're very important role now technology is going to be playing in how Australians have relationships with money and how they bank and how they secure finance and debt and credit cards. So ongoing theme for us to have a chat about. But this is Real Estate Exposed, Tom. The purpose of this show is for us to talk about the type of issues that is happening inside of real estate, maybe really behind the scenes or maybe really front and center, but often many people aren't too happy about to talk about. They might talk about it around the water cooler or over a couple of drinks on a Friday night after work. But Real Estate Exposed, and there's a couple of little undertones inside of real estate right now, which is going to give some sense, Tom, I think, to how property is going to be bought and sold moving forward, and also people's attitude towards that. And you were mentioning just before we come on air, Tom, you publicize all of your auctions, you record them, you host them up on social media. People tune into them, they like them, they're very voyeuristic. I watch them, they're good. But you said there's a lot of negativity in terms of the comments around your auction videos, particularly towards people having particular views towards people's ethnicity in a very derogatory, negative sense. So I think that needs to be called out, mate.
Yeah, it does need to be called out, Phil. By the way, this story was covered about 2 months ago on another property that I'd auctioned in Belfield, and the Telegraph ran the story. It was an auction that got 5 million views on a mobile phone. By the way, there was nothing high tech about it. And what was interesting is that when I got interviewed by the reporter, I was over the moon about it because what he was talking about was the 5 million views. And, every salesperson, every auctioneer loves a positive story. But then he said to me, "Oh, how do you feel about all the negative racism comments?" And I hadn't actually seen them, right? I mean, I don't go over old auctions and look at comments. And I went on and I had a look, and it wasn't 10, it wasn't 20, it was hundreds and hundreds of comments that were definitely racist. Some were using language that was, totally inappropriate, F words and what have you. And it was a case of people indicating that uh, Aussies could not buy real estate because of Asian, Indian influence. And what's really interesting, Phil, is that I see a lot of the buyers that buy these properties, and whilst it would be easy to interpret that they are Asian or Indian, they're Aussies. They live here, right? Um, Many of them are actually born here. Like, it's quite often, Phil, you go and congratulate the winner, and then you realize you're talking to someone that probably did undergrad uni with you. Um, but it's not acceptable, and while I'm talking to you, I'm actually now thinking maybe that's why these trolling laws that I'm hearing about in the last 40 hours are coming in.
Absolutely, Tom, and it's all over the papers at the moment. Go and check it out. So there's two different things here. There's the people who are making these derogatory comments or otherwise using social media. There is laws. They're getting worked up right now, and hiding behind the anonymity of the internet. You know what? Be careful what you put up on social media, because it may come back and bite you very, very hard. And there's already case law around this. Trolling. It's going to be a big deal moving forward. So if you're doing it, you're an idiot to start with. Putting aside what you're talking about, but if you're actually using a carriage service like the internet to bully or harass people, guess what? You're going to find yourself in trouble in the future. But talking about it in terms of real estate, Tom. Those sort of attitudes and behaviours in the modern Australia just aren't acceptable at all. And we all need to remember what it actually means to be an Australian. It's not the colour of your skin or what language you speak. It's about subscribing into what makes Australia a great place, mate. And if you're able to work hard and save a deposit and buy a home, big thumbs up from me. It doesn't matter. It's largely irrelevant.
Yeah. I think, Phil, one of the triggers of this is that up until these laws, there are actually no consequences. I mean, in the old days, you turn around and say someone would cop an uppercut. You can't give someone an uppercut on social media, right?
Yeah.
You can't give someone give them your 20 cents worth, right, face to face. And what that does, the fact that there aren't any consequences, I think encourages that keyboard warrior to actually, do it. I mean, I've always had an approach on social media, Phil, that, a troller for me is a pig, and a pig wants you to fight. So and because then you both get dirty, right? That's what pigs like to do. So I've always taken the approach: don't get involved, don't engage it, don't give oxygen, because that's probably one of the things a troller wants to do, wants to force a reaction from you. However, it is very, very clear, Phil, that some people, I mean, there have been suicides with people with trolling, and even I'm thinking of another story I read yesterday. A newsreader, I think on Channel 7, was quite devastated with the trolling that she was receiving. It's not acceptable, and I agree with you, Phil, that look, don't get me wrong. There are people out there that are frustrated with prices in real estate. I mean, there are people that are frustrated that they can't actually buy a home in an area that they'd like to. I mean, I never would have thought, Phil, that Lidcombe on Sunday, $3 million for a house. I totally get the frustrations. Glenfield, $1.5 million for a house, 2 weeks. I totally get it. These are not millionaire row suburbs. They shouldn't have been millionaire row, but they are $3 million in Lidcombe, right? So I think, but as you've indicated, Phil, if someone is hardworking, pays their taxes, puts money away in the bank, takes out a mortgage, it's taking all the risks involved with mortgages, we shouldn't actually degrade these people. I think if anything, you should turn around and say, that's outstanding work. Even if they haven't been born here, they've been here maybe a short period of time. We should turn around and say, look at them. They're having a crack. They're having a crack for themselves, for their family. And quite frankly, the Australian real estate market needs every possible buyer, no matter what culture they are.
And guess what's going to happen when we get through this COVID pandemic? Australia's going to be open to the world, and the world wants to come to Australia. And we need to remember, look back through our very young history, Tom. We've only been at this as a westernized nation for 200 years, but the history of Australia goes back, 40, 50,000 years, but this sort of immediate little period of time. We're a nation of migrants. So everyone's got their backstory, and everyone can trace out lineage back to where in the past someone arrived on these shores and capitalized on the opportunity to be part of Australia. That's what holds us to the core, and culturally is what defines us. And we're very fortunate that we have, and we're able to attract hardworking Australians to this nation, and they participate in the economy. We're all key drivers of that, real estate being a massive driver of it. We've spoken about it before. The mortgage economy underpins most of Australia's wealth, whether it's real estate or the value of our major companies. It gives us shelter, it gives us home, it gives us prosperity, it gives us everything we need. So it's an open playing field, Tom, and you only need to go and look at the numbers about what it means to be Australian right now. And look, these numbers are probably pretty close. It's 40%, 46% of all Australian families has someone born from overseas now. It's only half, mate.
I think, Phil, to me, this is just, again, symbolic of an issue that we are now facing in this country, and that is a shortage of supply of stock. And maybe this is maybe the comment and the frustration should be triggered and channeled towards the government, because there is a lot of red tape, Phil, on the way land is released. I mean,
Yeah.
we clearly know that there's a big appetite for people wanting a block of land to have a family home on. And we're very fortunate in Australia. We're not a place that doesn't have a shortage of land, and I think it's pent up frustration. And we clearly know some demand and supply will always dictate prices and price growth. And Luke Moroney, I don't know where he's got this statistic from. He's now putting up here our well, he probably is right. Our population is going to be 100 million one day. Who knows what that day is going to be? He's gone on. Governments need to make a new city, make Vegas. He's laughing at there. Anyway, I Phil, what's your view on the government's position of releasing land?
It's a very fine balance, and if you think to the challenging job that the government has, or the regulatory bodies that support these type of things, to get it right. Don't release too much land, so it devalues housing and it changes the supply and demand equation. But you got to loop in with that, Tom, around construction levels and construction capability. And we're behind the eight ball now, not as a result of COVID. We're always operating behind where we need to be in terms of building new dwellings to attract more people into Australia, or support intercity or interstate migration. We are behind as it sits right now, and there's a bunch of reasons for that, COVID related, and access to materials, but also labour. And it's going to be like that for some period of time. So even if the government were able to release a whole bunch of tranches of new land, we don't have the manufacturing capability as it sits right now to build the homes on top of that. This is sort of outside. I'm talking very general here. There's a lot of information out there. You go and check out HIA or any of the sort of demographic type bodies, but it is a very difficult equation. And I interface that also, or juxtapose with it, Tom, is that the way in which Australia is growing, and if we get to 100, whenever it's going to happen, a good chance of it. But the way that we're going to grow this population is going to be a mixture between, we do it ourselves organically, and migration. And the people who are coming to Australia to choose to live in Australia have a different view of what the great Australian dream is. And often now, Tom, it's not the quarter-acre block with a white picket fence. I think we're long beyond that right now. You're seeing vertical living, vertical cities. People from certain parts of the world like living in highly condensed environments in large apartment buildings. That's going to be their Australian dream. You're still going to have people's Australian dreams going to be moving out to regional Australia. It's going to be living in the suburbs. I think we need to cater very smartly to all of them. And this goes back to the roles of the government in terms of giving that future cities view. And there's a lot of work in that as well. Go and Google it. It's probably outside the scope of this chat. But everyone's on board. Everyone wants the same thing. We have safety. We have security. We have economic prosperity here in Australia, Tom. It's why it's called the lucky country, mate.
It is. It is. Now,
and
Phil,
everyone can make their own way as well.
One of the greatest things about this country, and actually the business that we all sort of work in that watch this real estate, is that, it's uncapped opportunity. It allows, doesn't matter where you come from, it allows an incredible, like in real estate, there's uncapped earnings. I mean, we've got, and I've got lots of stories. Tanay Jain is one of them. Guys that have come over from India a few years ago. Real estate, you know what? If you've got a pulse rate and you're vertical, you're in. But the issue is becoming one of the best. Doesn't matter whether you got a university degree. Doesn't matter whether you were brought up in the eastern suburbs or you were brought up in the western suburbs. We're seeing great stories. Even Luke Moroney's putting here, the Meriton's a great story, opportunities of people to build amazing things. So we should be a country that, tall poppy syndrome, we know it's there. There's a great saying, everyone wants to see you do good till they're better than you. A little bit of that in this, I think, Phil. But I think we should turn around and not be jealous. I think we should say, man, if he can do it, if she can do it, man, the world's your oyster. Anyone can.
It's good. Mate, grit, tenacity, perseverance, resilience, all these very strong emotive words are the calling card for people who want to get ahead in Australia. And it is out there and it's accessible. You got to create your own path. But, I think just to summarise this particular point, Tom, we need to call this out inside of real estate. I think we all have an obligation not to support those type of views where we can, and call them out when we see them, because it's a bit of a stain on the way in which we're going about doing this sort of stuff. And I think it's easy for us to avoid it.
Well said. Now, Phil, the second topic I want to talk about, and I said to you off air, so my social media audience, it's really good the way that Facebook and Instagram can give you insights with one click of a button. So I've got 52% male, 48% female, and my real estate gym is around roughly about that 45-55%, 45 female, 55. And when I do training and coaching, I notice that 80% of the time, the same issues come up. But 20% of the time, there are different issues. So when I look at female agents and female coaching sessions, they normally talk about subjects like life balance, very big, and a lot of them actually coping with guilt of not being at the school carnival, guilt having not being there to pick up their kids because they're at a listing presentation. So there is a little bit of guilt. There's also constant, desire to find out how do other, female agents that have got young kids and run a family, how they manage it all. They're very intrigued on, are there any hacks that can help them actually have the best of both worlds, a great real estate career and also a good family life. But 2 days ago, I was having a coaching session with an agent and she raised a question, which is, Tom, do you think if you are presenting yourself attractively and if you're aesthetically a very good looking, fit, well-presented female agent, if you're sitting at a listing presentation and you've got a husband and wife there, do I think it's possible that that can actually work against you? By the way, let me just rephrase. You could probably say something about a guy in case people jump on and say, oh, why we're going to one, right? And Lisa Novak is saying it is a very real conversation, and we love having real conversations, Phil. We love talking about the stuff that I think people think of, but they think I better not say it because it's not cool to say it. Well, I think it is important because I think today there is going to be a female agent sitting at a listing presentation, and she may look like Elle Macpherson, and that's what she does for a living. She's a real estate agent, and she may have the view that it might work against her. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you think, Phil?
Well, it's not a role of a journalist to really have an opinion, Tom. We've spoken about this before, but what I would say, Tom, is it's interesting because it's probably one of the first times I thought the challenges that real estate agents face, or people in sales, but specifically real estate agents, is universal, irrespective of gender. I've never really sort of delineated that there's gender-specific challenges inside of people that operate within real estate. But I think it's a very important point. And the example you use, I'm trying to think of how a scenario like that would play out, and how it could be detrimental, or also how it could actually be beneficial. And imagine a coin toss, if it was an issue, to be 50-50 each way. But I don't think I think it's a tough one. I don't think it would always be an issue. I think it would be the minority of times where this could be a circumstance which could determine the outcome of a listing presentation, good or bad. But I can see it happening. I guess the way and where I'd lean on you for this and your commentary around it is, what do you do about it? Like, number one, are you conscious about it? And there's this level of consciousness in any sales scenario, situational awareness, if you want to call it that. There's a consciousness that, hang on a second, I can see this playing out right now. So being conscious enough to know that there's a trigger point or inflection point here, which might go left or right because of that particular issue. So how do you work out whether or not it is actually something which may determine the the effective outcome of listing presentation, number one. But number two, how do you then deal with it? And I imagine tactically there's some smart ways you could do that, Tom.
Yeah. So,
like awareness
I
being the
think
first thing, and then what do you do about it?
like it would be. I think it can definitely happen, and I don't think it should happen, but it definitely can happen, right? That's the first thing. And the second thing is, once you become aware of it, you begin to realize that it's a situational thing. And I think a lot of it's got to do with the actual, the people that you're in the house with, and things. I mean, the various things that come to my mind is, what is the current relationship like of the couple that you're presenting to, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is the agent themselves, like, how are they carrying out the presentation? Are they engaging in, people equally? Are they aware that this dynamic may be happening? And because they're aware that it may be happening, they're able to actually diffuse the situation. For instance, some of the comments, there was hundreds and hundreds of comments. And by the way, just for the record, for those that don't follow me on social media, the number was 60% of agents. This is thousands of people have voted. 60% of agents said, yes, it does happen. 40% said, no, it doesn't. So what are some of the comments that came up? Some people said that, hey, just diffuse the situation by making it very obvious that you yourself, if you're the female agent, have got your own family and you got kids, and you bring it up, and you make a point of it, which is in many ways sort of saying, I am like you. I have the same challenges and issues that you're having. And I think, and this is a really, really interesting point too, Bill, because this has got nothing to do. Oh, by the way, and what I'm about to say has got nothing to do about the topic we're talking about, being whether you're an attractive female agent that is potentially being a threat at a listing presentation. I think a lot of real estate people actually neglect eye contact with the female partner of a relationship when they're presenting. I just think that a lot of the times they might actually even get seduced to the terrible word to be using in this context, but they fall for the trap of listening to potentially the husband, who is the loudest. But what actually happens, Phil, is that when the agent leaves the house and they sit down as a husband and wife and make a decision, there is enough research out there to say that females are more dominant in the final decision in the selection of an agent. And I can see very easily how an agent can sit there and maybe not have an even split eyeball to eyeball communication with the wife in the conversation. This is something that people should be aware of.
It's a key point, Tom. And who is the key person you need to influence as part of a real estate transaction? There's a lot of research out there saying it's the female. Who holds the balance of power when it comes to large financial decisions inside of households? There's plenty of research to say it's the females that make those decisions largely, or the driver of it. Tom, I've spoken with hundreds, if not thousands, of property investors from a variety of genders, and I'll tell you also, and it's clear in my conversations, is that the female often makes the call on stuff. They're a lot closer to the finances. They're a lot more in tune with and connected with the reason for the purchase of property, whether it's as an investment, as in planning for the future, or a place to raise a family. If you're not ensuring at least parity in the way in which you're connecting with a potential vendor on a listing presentation, that's up to you to resolve, because it will really hamper or limit your ability as a sales professional to get the results that you want. And these are just natural dynamics that happen inside of relationships. And then you've got the number of different types of relationships that we now have in Australia, and it's a beautiful thing, right? So you got to read the play. That's the skill of the sales professional. Understand where that balance of power is, and through the right questions and the right body language and observing of that, you should be able to work out pretty quickly where that is.
Yeah, and I see that, Phil, I sometimes see really, really great real estate agents. So hard to teach it, Phil. So hard to teach it. You could sit people through a course for a whole day. It is very difficult to get an agent to read the play. Very, very difficult. I think you can improve on it, but if you're born with an EQ score of 60 out of 100, you'll probably get it to 75, 80. But there are just some people that can walk in and they just sit there and they say, I better make Sally happy here because I got a gut feeling is that what she says happens. And a happy, as a saying, happy wife, happy life. I reckon this is the case here right now. I've got to make sure I get on top of this. Whereas other people, what will happen is they won't be able to read the play. Reading the play, important skill. In fact, I'd go as far as saying is real estate. If I had to write a heading of a top selling book after 35 years in real estate, I would just pretty much say hustle plus read the play. Man, you're in that would get you through most of real estate, right? If you've got that grit, persistence, chase, and then you add, emotional quotient. Now, having said that, I'd turn around and say I'd add another chapter, which would be TQ, because I do think your technology quotient all of a sudden does matter, Phil. It does matter. I didn't think about it before, but I do now because I actually think if right now you are not using, the handful of tech tools that have become pretty much normal during this COVID period, man, you're not in the game.
Mm. Yeah,
You're not in the game.
Completely agree with you. So you just said here, first news flash, there's a book coming out, Tom Panos. Finally, we're sick of watching you on the internet, Tom. We want to see the written word. I know you like putting the pen to paper every now and then to get those creative juices of yours flowing. Everyone's got one good book in them, mate. Everyone's got a good book in them.
Well, I've got to tell you, I've got a good head start. I'm going to read out. I'll read out something that was sent to me this morning. Please see, this is from News Corp head editor. Please see your story from last month. Again, was the top performing digital story for News Corp for the month. Because your stories are going so well for us online, we want to give them the digital airspace as their priority, and then print comes in second. So I've got to tell you, and I've got to tell you, I'm not a great writer, but I tell you what, I've worked out what the market loves. The market loves hearing what they don't really see behind the scenes. They love it. People like a backstage view. And I've got access to that, Phil.
That's good. Well, part of the logic behind Real Estate Exposed, mate, talking about these type of issues, which everyone wants to talk about, but often challenging to discuss. And I think we've given both of those points pretty fair crack, mate. But I think it's imperative we keep the conversation going. It's about skills.
One question to you, Phil. You and your partner are listing your home. Proportion out of 100% towards making the decision. Where's the needle go?
Whether we sell it or
no. Which agent you give it to?
Oh, would I be attracted to a male or a female agent to list it?
No. Sorry, I should rephrase the question. If you and your wife are selecting a real estate agent, right?
Yep.
How much out of 100%?
Would the determination be made? You know what, mate? It'd be an absolute 50-50 decision. We'd express our views, and we'd in a very positive way debate our particular views, and we would have a universal decision on the way to go.
I like that.
Would be, and it's exactly how I operate in business as well. Talk about the issue. You've got to be able to talk about issues without any bias. You got to discuss the issue on the basis of trying to get the best outcome, and that doesn't mean that the way you see the world is the way it ends up. That's fine.
No, you're good at that. I think you're very good at that. I think it must be all your years in journal. I think as a journal, I think when you become a journalist, you actually get used to actually John Webster, who was the first manager I had in the media industry that didn't come through the sales funnel. He came through editorial. And what I remember is that John Webster was very open-minded. And I remember saying to him once, and he used to get lots of views before he'd make a decision. And what it was is his journalistic background meant that he had an open mind to hear other versions of how someone saw a situation. Because when he was covering a story, he would know that someone had one view and another person had another view. So he was very much like that. And I think it's a very, very good skill to have. I think you've got to understand and accept. Yeah, that if there's a beach ball, and I've used this metaphor before, you can both be looking at a beach ball. One's looking at a red panel, one's looking at a green panel. You're actually both looking at the same ball, but you're looking at things differently. And it's the person that's looking at the red that needs to have the awareness that that person might actually be looking at green on the other side of that ball, and to help them understand that you're sort of looking at the same thing, but you're also looking at different panels.
Well, this goes back to a more leadership learnings and philosophy. You know, the best leaders, they say, are those that are able to absorb a whole bunch of different opinions and be able to have a comfortable relationship with differing opinions to theirs or those people around them, and make the right call. And often the right call is not what you think it originally or initially was. It's after going through that process that you're able to say, no, the call's over here. This is the right thing over here, what this particular person has presented. And that's the way you go about. That's how you advance. That's how you accelerate. Because if every decision you make is absolutely something that you haven't socialized with anyone else, you're probably not going to do too well. You might win some, but you're going to lose a lot.
Yeah, well said.
So that would be my position. And to that basis, also, I think we're talking about the vendor presentation. The best agent is probably able to, inverted commas, read the play and be able to cultivate an environment where they can have the information to have that discussion subsequent to the actual presentation, so they remember that person in the best light. You know, that's how it works, Tom. You know that. That's what you teach.
Yeah, listen, I would suggest everyone that's watching this, by the way, you can go onto Google now and do disc profiles for free. There used to be a time you'd have to actually go, they were under licensing agreements and what have you. They've eased off there and they're freely available. Forgetting the husband-wife scenario, I actually think that everyone that's tuning in here should have a very good understanding of, I know there's Myers-Briggs, there's DISC, there's lots of very personality profiling, but I think your average person needs to understand the way that you see the world is not necessarily the way that they see the world. There's a group of people that believe, particularly those that score on a C in the DISC, which I actually call the C, the calculator. It helps me understand that they believe that there's an algorithm. They believe that everything is mathematical sense, right? That's the person that walks into an elevator and looks at the lift and just looks at the plaque to see how many people are allowed in the lift. They're the person that actually reads the report from start to finish. Then you've got another group of people that are very talkative. They could talk for 4 or 5 hours. They don't care about the detail. What they care about is a connection with another human being. That matters more. And then you've got your Ds, your dominants, which are, I keep thinking of Donald Trump. They're very, listen, just tell me, what's your fee, mate? What's your fee, mate? What are you charging, right? They're straight to the point. I think everyone should actually attempt to improve their EQ and their reading skills. You might not become a 10 out of 10, but I tell you what, if you go from a 6 to an 8 out of 10, or automatically you're going to improve your conversion rate in sales.
Completely agree. You've got to be, again, self-awareness. It's self-development. It's all that sort of stuff. And the best people I know are always working on it, proactively or organically. It just happens all through osmosis. But it's good, Tom. Mate, really good chat. I will just quickly say that, we've been using examples with sort of a husband and wife, but I do absolutely acknowledge that there's a whole bunch of different ways in which relationships take place this day and age as well. So it's irrelevant, the gender, in terms of reading and play. It doesn't matter. It's about the skills to be able to be observant and understand, and therefore position yourself in the best possible way.
100%. And I get to see that every weekend, Phil, because I start in the inner city markets
Yeah,
where the demographic is, I go from Newtown uh, to Haberfield to Quakers Hill,
yeah,
and look, I'm not changing my personality, but I'll tell you one thing: you adjust. And Rick Serrao, I think he's number 3 in the RB top 100, did say once in an interview, you've got to be a chameleon, right?
yeah.
You've got to accept it. You're in the game of the people business, and the people business is about likability, and likability is about similarity, and similarity is you cannot be totally different to the person that you're speaking to. Doesn't mean you sell out, but it basically shows elements to the person that you're dealing with is that I am a little bit like you, right? And likability is very important. Likability is very important. Great book by Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini talks about the law of liking.
Well, Tom, I've been checking. I checked you out last Saturday. I think you're 7 out of 14 auctions by
15.
memory.
It's lower than 50%. It's lowest
Yeah,
clearance rate for some time. It's
yeah,
Phil. There's no question about it. There is a change. There is a
mm,
change happening. You tipped this 5 weeks ago when APRA brought it in. It's taken time. Didn't happen the first 2-3 weeks. It's beginning to happen. I'm not. I'm still not clear, Phil. The verdict is out. We're going to know in February whether we are in this situation because there's a lot of listings on the market, or whether we're in this situation because we have entered another phase of a real estate cycle. Not sure on that at the moment.
well, jury's out. I look forward to the report Saturday, mate. Well, and Sunday and Monday, you're auctioning every day now. That might come back now if there's, and no doubt we'll probably start seeing this pendulum swing of more auctions than private treaty back to more private treaty orientated sales campaigns.
Yeah, it could be, Phil. I mean, I'm prepared. I'm auctioning tonight. I'm auctioning every day. I will probably do 150 auctions in the month of December. I'm auctioning every day, but I do also accept that we may be going. It might be a new cycle, and a new cycle will mean less auctions because one of the reasons people do auction is high buyer competition, and competition is what drives the share market up. It drives real estate prices up. So, Phil, we wait to see. We wait to see. And anyway, 3 weeks to Christmas, Phil. Have you had your Christmas party yet? Has your REB had theirs, internal one?
So we're actually doing a bit of a fragmented one this year within the company. We normally have our big annual conference as a whole organization, MCOM we call it, for Momentum Convention. We go away as a company overnight, do a whole bunch of cool stuff. But this year, Tom, we've got events on every single day. There's 2 today, the Australian Broking Awards, Australian Law Awards again tomorrow, et cetera, et cetera. So we've gone down a pathway of let's get the year rounded out and get all these great award programs and events cracked, and then sort of have a bit of a break. And we're going to have our big conference at the start of next year, the 2 days before Australia Day. But we're doing like little Christmas parties, little individual teams are getting together. We're trying to keep sort of not highly connected. So our teams are really good, but to bring the whole company together, the last thing we'd want was some sort of COVID issue which took people out over Christmas. So that's our approach this year, mate.
All righty. Phil, good to see you. I'll talk to you next week.
Nice one, Tom.